WWF Super WrestleMania and WWF Royal Rumble, two games that wrestling fans who grew up in the 16-bit era remember quite fondly. Nowadays, the common complaints you'll hear about these two releases are centered around how they look the same and more or less play the same. Even the follow-up WWF Raw game got a little flack for being too similar to its predecessors, but ask anyone who owned these games back in the 90s and they'll tell you that they were actually a lot of fun to play at the time, especially the multiplayer modes. Super WrestleMania was the first licensed WWF game to come out for 16-bit consoles. You have to consider the upgrade WWF fans were presented with when previous games looked like this and this on the NES. The bigger sprites, the gameplay, the fact that you could have a more varied wrestling match with also a considerate bump in graphics, sound and presentation. Yeah, it was good back then. Today, both of these games, WrestleMania and Royal Rumble, they only serve as time capsules. There isn't much point in playing either game, seeing as WWF Raw includes everything its predecessors have with the exception of different superstars, but it's a kinda those who know kind of thing with Super WrestleMania and Royal Rumble. At one point in time, these games were the top of the food chain when it came to professional wrestling. Yes, I know Fire Pro existed back then, but you try asking your parents to import a Japanese wrestling game when you're a kid. I know my parents would have told me to go do one. So I'm going to have a look at these games today. We're going to check out the different versions on different consoles, and I'm not going to say if they're still worth playing in modern times because, well, they really aren't, especially for those who have no nostalgia at all for these releases. But I'm sure for many of you guys who watch this channel, this'll be a nice trip down memory lane. Let's check out Super WrestleMania first. This one was released in mid-1992 for the Sega Genesis or Sega Mega Drive and Super Nintendo. It was developed by Sculptured Software before they were acquired by Acclaim, although Acclaim still published the game. Acclaim and the WWF had a partnership beginning 4 years earlier with the release of WrestleMania on the NES, and they had continued to have a relationship right up until the release of WWF Attitude. Something I should point out too, just to avoid any confusion, is that WWF Super WrestleMania was released for the Super Nintendo under the LJN brand name, laughing joking numbnuts. Acclaim had purchased LJN in 1990, and on the Mega Drive the game was released under Acclaim's Flying Edge brand name. Different brand names were used because of contractual issues with Nintendo during the NES era, where publishers were only allowed to release a certain amount of games per year. Creating subsidiaries with different names and even different operational locations was a way to get around this. In short, no matter what the game says when you boot it up on either console, Super WrestleMania was developed by Sculptured Software before they were purchased by the publisher, and that publisher was Acclaim.
Super Nintendo, Super WrestleMania, Gorilla Monsoon taking the Hulksters part, and he's down for the count, 2 and 3!
Let's take a quick look at a match and some gameplay features first of all before we talk about the roster and modes. There's a tremendous amount of differences between the Super Nintendo and Mega Drive versions that we're going to look at today, and you're going to decide which one is better. Here's the Super Nintendo version first of all, Randy Savage versus Jake Roberts. Every single superstar in the game has the exact same moveset. There's no difference in stats. The only thing that differs between wrestlers is how they look. I'm not going to harp on about the graphics too much, but you really have to remember this was 1992 and we were moving away from the 8-bit wrestling games. No one's ever going to say this looks good in modern times, but back then, this would have been mind-blowing for someone upgrading from an NES or even a Sega Master System. You've got Bobby Heenan and Vince McMahon on commentary, or is that Sean Mooney and Bobby Heenan? I don't know. You've got a static wrestling audience, a referee is present inside the ring too, which was new at the time, believe it or not. And yeah, that's it really for the presentation. The tug-of-war lockup system is introduced in Super WrestleMania. Once you press the lockup button, you'll quickly tap another button immediately afterwards to perform a move of your choice. If your opponent taps quicker than what you do, then your opponent will pull off the move, although you do get an advantage if you yourself initiate the lockup. There's a punch button, a kick button, a run button, and other moves are available depending on your opponent's position and yours. Basically, you'll do more moves if your opponent is on the mat, and you've also got a top rope move available. There's no special moves here, no finishing moves at all, and that's pretty unforgivable, although we'll come back to this in a moment. It's a very basic game to say the least. It almost feels like a demo or a proof of concept when compared to later games, but again, and I promise this will be the last time I bring this up, you need to remember what came before this. Super WrestleMania, in a gameplay sense, truly shines in multiplayer. That's where you're going to get your money's worth, because playing against the CPU is going to be extremely repetitive, no matter what difficulty you play on. What you see here is what you get. Additionally, the superstars get announced at the beginning of the match, and Howard Finkel will also announce the winner. And that's your lot, guys. Use punches, use kicks, lock-up moves, top rope moves, and grounded moves to bring your opponent's health down. You can fight on the outside too, but be careful you don't get counted out. Once your opponent's health has been drained, don't even think about pulling off a finishing move. Just pin your opponent and then you're on to the next guy. Alright, let's go out and look at the game modes available and the roster. Keep in mind we're still looking at the Super Nintendo version. Your first choice, do you want to play against a computer or a friend? You then have the option of a one-on-one match, a tag team match, or a Survivor Series match. There's nothing else here, no one-player arcade mode or anything like that. You've got the choice of 3 exhibition matches and that's it. 2-player mode is no different, but at least you and your friend can talk shit while playing the game. When choosing any kind of exhibition match when playing against the CPU, you're not allowed to select your opponent. So if you want to set up that Randy Savage versus Hulk Hogan match, you gotta hope you just get lucky and the CPU selects the right opponent. What an oversight that was. In 2-player multi-man matches, you'll take turns in selecting wrestlers. Meaning, in a Survivor Series match, you can't hog all the main eventers and leave your mate with the scraps. In tag matches, you'll control both guys in your tag team, and in Survivor Series matches, you can change who waits in your corner by pressing the select button. Survivor Series, I think, is the best mode to play in the game. Seeing as the whole game lacks variety, you can just stick on a Survivor Series bout and get a look at all the wrestlers in the game and be done with it. Let's go back out and look at the roster. On the Super Nintendo version, we've got the Macho Man Randy Savage, Jake the Snake Roberts, Hulk Hogan brother, The Undertaker, the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal, the Natural Disasters, Typhoon and Earthquake, and we've also got the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase and Sid Justice. You can also hear 16-bit renditions of the theme songs during the character select, and some of these are pretty decent. From this roster screen, I'm going to flip over and show you the Mega Drive version because only Hulk Hogan, Ted DiBiase, and Randy Savage are held over. Just before doing that though, take a look at Hulk Hogan on the Mega Drive title screen. Ooh. The Sega version includes the Ultimate Warrior, DiBiase, Hogan, Shawn Michaels, Randy Savage, the British Bulldog, IRS, and Papa Shango. It's up to you what roster you think is better, but it's pretty fascinating how both rosters are so different. You only get 8 superstars on the Mega Drive version in comparison to the Super Nintendo's 10, and once you get into a game, you'll notice that the Super Nintendo version is much nicer to look at, but the Mega Drive release is definitely more smooth with additional frames of animation getting thrown in. What's more, the Sega release has special moves for each wrestler. Granted, these don't look very special, but they are in here, and that would have been a big selling point for kids in the early 90s. If you want to pull off Hogan's devastating leg drop, you gotta get the Sega version. We also have a championship mode, which is pretty much one match after another. Standard arcade rules here, but again, at least it's here. And you also have the option of choosing your opponents during exhibition matches. Even with the roster being cut from 10 to 8, and even with the game not looking as good, I'd choose the Mega Drive version over the Super Nintendo version every single time. You still aren't getting a whole lot with Super WrestleMania no matter which platform you decide to play it on, but you get a little more on the Mega Drive with finishing moves in the championship mode. The roster, there's pros and cons with each release, but seeing as everyone plays the exact same way, does it really matter? Speaking of the roster changes, here's a cutout from the August 1991 edition of Electronic Gaming Monthly. This shows an early version of the Super Nintendo release that the magazine named WWF Superstars. That's a bit strange, seeing as the title screen still has Super WrestleMania on there, but check out the screenshot. It looks like the Ultimate Warrior was going to be in the Super Nintendo release at one point, and also, that other guy, to me, looks like the Honky Tonk Man, but I can't be sure either. The blurb also mentions that Mr. Perfect would have been in the game, but he wasn't.
Royal Rumble on Super NES. Incredible 16-meg action. Coming June 8th.
It's perfect.
WWF Royal Rumble on Super NES.
Perfect.
Alright, so clearly Super WrestleMania left fans wanting more, and Sculptured Software would give fans a whole lot more with the sequel, WWF Royal Rumble. Gameplay-wise, the Super Nintendo and Mega Drive versions are identical. Both games have special moves in the same game modes, so let's start this time with the rosters before checking out what's new when playing the actual game. Here's the Super Nintendo roster. We've got Randy Savage, Mr. Perfect, The Undertaker, Bret Hart, Tatanka, Crush, Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, Yokozuna, Lex Luger, and Ted DiBiase. 7 of these wrestlers appear in the Genesis version: Savage, Bret, Shawn, Taker, Razor, Crush, and Luger. Exclusive wrestlers that you'll only find on the Sega version are Hulk Hogan, IRS, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the model Rick Martel, and Papa Shango, meaning you're going to lose Ric Flair, Mr. Perfect, Yokozuna, Tatanka, and Ted DiBiase by choosing the Mega Drive release. Here's an interesting little tidbit too, thanks to channel friend Guru Larry for sending this over. A screenshot from the May 1993 issue of GameFan shows Kamala as a selectable character in the Super Nintendo release. Kamala wouldn't show up in any of these games until Rage in the Cage came out for the Sega CD. Why he was cut from Royal Rumble, who knows? But the fact that there's a gameplay screenshot also means there could be a prototype out there that includes the Ugandan Giant as a playable character. Due to the extra buttons available on the Super Nintendo controller, the Super Nintendo version looking better, and neither game having no other differences really apart from the roster, I'd choose the Super Nintendo version this time over the Mega Drive release. Let's get into a match and let's see what's different. Presentation wise, we're seeing a big upgrade with a redrawn animated crowd, and a wider colour palette makes things look a lot more vibrant. The ring looks better, the health bars have a bit more colour. All in all, it's a clear visual upgrade, although the wrestlers still look pretty much the same. Flipping back to the Mega Drive version, and yeah, to me it just doesn't look as good. It plays the exact same though, you can't go wrong with either release. So it's going to come down to the wrestlers you want to play as, and as mentioned, the Super Nintendo controller I feel is way better suited to both this and Super WrestleMania. The 6-button Mega Drive controller though is compatible with Royal Rumble. Perform a lockup in Royal Rumble and you now get a little tug-of-war indicator letting you see who's doing better at mashing buttons. In 2-player mode this can turn into a real power struggle and it'll come down to who tires out first, and it can be a whole lot of fun when neither you nor your friend want to give up. The referee can get knocked down, and when this happens you can perform illegal moves such as choking, raking the eyes, or you can use the chair that's set up outside the ring. More moves have been added, giving a little more variety to the available wrestlers, and both versions have finishing moves, and these two look way better than Super WrestleMania on Mega Drive. It also feels a lot more fluid and a lot more responsive. It definitely plays better than Super WrestleMania. You've got your theme music in here again on both releases, and again these can sound pretty good. And you've got more grunts and groans from the superstars, and these sound effects were actually recorded by ring announcer Tony Chimmel, referee Mike Chioda, and production worker John D'Amico. Both releases have the same game modes. You can play exhibition matches and brawls. Brawls don't include a referee, anything goes with no countouts. Tournaments are now available for one-on-one and tag teams. There's a 6-man tag mode where you can once again flip between which wrestler stands in your corner waiting for a tag. And then there's the big new addition, the Royal Rumble match. Going back to Super WrestleMania, anytime there were more than 2 guys in the ring at the same time, things would slow down to a snail's pace, making it frustrating to play. In WWF Royal Rumble, a total of 6 guys can get in the ring at the same time, and there's no slowdown at all. This lets you play Royal Rumble matches without a hitch, and this is where most people spent their time with these kind of games. This is what people remember when they think about WWF releases on the 16-bit consoles. The Royal Rumble mode on single player is good, fast-paced action, but the Royal Rumble in multiplayer mode is an absolute blast. Beat your opponent up, lock up, and use the Irish whip button to throw people out of the ring, or use a back body drop or hip toss when your opponent comes running at you. And that's all there is to it really. It sounds basic, but it's still good. I'd set myself little challenges to eliminate every single person in record time, and while I'm a little out of practice, I'm still doing pretty good. Get a friend over for this though, multiplayer is definitely where it's at. Even with the very fun Royal Rumble mode included, WWF Royal Rumble on Super Nintendo and Mega Drive has the same problem that Super WrestleMania has, and that's a lack of replayability for single player modes. There's nothing to unlock, there's no reward for going through tournament modes, and really all you'll do is try to beat your Royal Rumble times, but there's no game save either and there's no high score table. These are 2-player games through and through, and there's fun to be had when 2 players can take these games for what they are, especially Royal Rumble. Because these games, WrestleMania, Royal Rumble and Raw, were the only WWF games released on 16-bit consoles, not including WrestleMania the arcade game, it leads to WWF fans of this generation having quite a lot of nostalgia for these games, while younger fans will take one look and say, what the hell's this? I'm not playing that garbage. And, you know, that's fair enough too. I mean, just look. There's no way this would appeal to anyone who hasn't played before, and you'd have to have some sort of history with these games before you try to tell other people that they're worth playing. There's an overall lack of interest too in terms of fans going back and doing other things like modding these games to include new wrestlers and things of that nature. There isn't any kind of communities for the 16-bit WWF games like the way there is for the SmackDown games, the Aki games, and even the Fire Pro games. I'm not saying there should be, by the way, but it just highlights how there's nothing to see here or discuss once you've played the games. Trust me when I say though, if you had nothing else back then, which most of us didn't, then you wouldn't complain and you got your WWF fix through these games. Although I'll also admit that these games didn't stay in my consoles for too long, and I'd end up playing Super Mario Kart or Street Fighter 2 once I had a couple of matches. I'm sure many of you done the exact same thing. WWF Raw on the 16-bit consoles improved on everything that came before it, and in many ways, it's the definitive WWF game of the LJN Trilogy. I've already made a video on that game too if you want to check it out, but do be warned, it's an older video. I think you've got it worked out by now, but if you haven't played these before, then you aren't going to get a whole lot out of them. For that reason, for new players at least, these games don't come recommended. What you see in this video is what you get, and even if you do decide to play these games, you aren't going to play for too long because they get repetitive really fast, unless you want to check out all the finishing moves. Royal Rumble mode is good, check that out for sure with a friend. But everything else, nah, I can't see new players having a good time. For those who own these games as kids, you'll get a kick out of hearing those old 16-bit renditions of the theme songs. You'll remember having no other WWF games to play, so you were making the most out of what you had. And playing these games, or even seeing these games again, will bring you back to simpler times. There might be value here for those feeling a little nostalgic, but trust me, you'll move on to something else after a few matches. This video should be all you need to scratch that itch. There's way more interesting old school wrestling games to look at, and I plan on covering more as time goes on. WWF Super WrestleMania and WWF Royal Rumble were once acceptable for sure, but that doesn't mean they're worth playing today, no matter how rose-tinted your glasses are. Thanks for watching guys, and take care.